Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lots Learning. I'm your teacher, Amanda Lots, and I'm here to teach you better English so you can be more successful. In our last lesson, we discussed how to make polite requests at the workplace. Today, we will focus on how to politely disagree at the workplace. This can be especially challenging because sometimes it's necessary to say no at work. However, we've learned that being direct at the workplace is viewed as rude, and we also want to be a team player. So in this video, you will learn helpful phrases that you can use at work or in your everyday life to be a team player, but also respectfully disagree when needed. Now, in general, the best strategy that we can use to politely disagree is to first validate. Validate the other person's idea and point of view. Even if you don't agree with it, find something that you can agree with. Then you can give your disagreement. This is best to find an alternative, a solution, or a different way of thinking, not just your opinion. We'll go through this in steps. First, let's focus on validating. Here are some phrases you can use to validate your coworker or your boss. I see your point. Or I see where you're coming from. Or I see what you're saying. In general, showing someone that you see them, you understand their thinking is very validating. You can also say, that's an interesting idea. Interesting is a neutral adjective. It can be used as a positive or a negative. So in this case, it is an interesting idea. It might not be an idea I agree with or I think is best, but it is interesting. A great way to validate, and then you can give your own idea after. You can also use the phrase, that makes sense, validating that it's very logical what they have said, and you understand. So to review, I see your point. I see where you're coming from. I see what you're saying. That's an interesting idea, and that makes sense. Make sure that you have a calm, neutral tone when saying these. We do not want any misinterpretation or sarcasm. For example, there is a difference between that's an interesting idea versus that's an interesting idea. Do you see the difference? If we put more emphasis on interesting, the person will sense that you don't actually like the idea and that you're not being genuine. It's important to be genuine when you make these comments. Now let's focus on the second part of disagreeing, giving your own opinion or point of view or solution. It's best to avoid harsh negative opinions as they are not helpful or constructive in the workplace. People in general at work are not interested in what you feel about something. They are interested in solutions and better options. So focus on providing that. For example, let's say your coworker thinks that you should do an oral presentation to the client, maybe using pictures on a billboard as a visual. You don't like this idea. So you might say, I see your point about having a visual aid, but maybe we could use PowerPoint. This will make us look more up to date and modern. There you go. You can agree that you want to use visuals, but you might disagree on the actual visual that you'll use. So provide a solution. Let's say your coworker presents an idea that you find to be very problematic. Instead of saying directly how you think it's a bad idea, instead, you can become curious. Learn a little more before we disagree. This is a great strategy that shows people you are genuinely considering what they are suggesting. For example, you can say, I'm not sure I agree. However, I'd like to understand more. You're inviting them to maybe persuade you or give more context or information so you can have a better understanding. Once you receive that information, then you might agree or disagree. Another general tip is to avoid using comparatives and superlatives, using words like better or best or worst. These are giving your opinion and they're rooted in judgment. So you could say, I think this is a better solution. Some people might be offended to that. So instead, you can use the word ideal instead of better. I think it's ideal to use this strategy. It's another way to say better, but it's more neutral and doesn't have as much judgment. Now, sometimes people are really passionate about their ideas and they will keep pushing. It's hard to give a firm no and still be polite and considerate. So you can encourage to go in a different direction rather than stopping their current idea. Or maybe you can encourage expanding on their existing idea. And this is a great way to inspire your team. For example, you can say, let's look at it from a different angle. Or you can say, let's see how creative we can get. So you're inviting space to think about the solution in a different way. This invites creativity, expansion. It challenges your team without dismissing them or discouraging them. Try to remember to not say no ever at the office, but rather redirect to be more positive and solution-based. Here are some ways we can redirect that are still polite. You could say, have we considered, and then give a solution. Or what if we looked at it this way? Or another way to approach this could be, remember our modals, would and could? These are still helping us to be polite, talking about possibilities. Another would be, maybe we could try, giving your option. Or talking about your own experience. In my experience, and in general, getting curious. I wonder if, and there you go. Combine this redirection right after you validate. So, for example, I see your point, but I wonder if we could do this instead. Or, that's an interesting idea. Maybe we could. Or, I understand where you're coming from. In my experience, or we could say, that makes sense. Another way to approach this could be, do you see? It doesn't sound like I'm disagreeing or that I don't like the ideas. I am open to them, I see them, but I'd like to get curious and expand on other options. This is what inspires teams, and this is our goal at the workplace. And there you have it. You can mix and match these validating and redirecting phrases together, but remember, always start with validation first. And at all costs, avoid saying no directly. Focus on solutions and other alternatives. This will create more of a teamwork dynamic between you and your coworkers, as well as your boss, or really anyone in your life. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.